Today, guys, marks something we have never done before. We have an opportunity here to actually interview some developers. Now, we've worked with developers, we've talked to them, but we've never actually had them on a panel where my team and I got to sit down and ask them deep questions about a game that we're very much interested in. And the reason why this is important for us is because, well, there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that us as gamers might not know about. And this is something that I want to continue doing as we reach out to other developers in the industry to just see what does go on behind the scenes, not just from a creative standpoint, but also from a technical standpoint. Today, though, we actually sit down with Shark Mob's creative director, Peter Mannerfelt. He has a deep background in looter shooters, and he talks about their upcoming game, Exoborne. Enjoy. Peter, could you tell me a little bit about your position here with Exoborne and Shark Mob?
Sure. My name is Peter, and I'm one of the co-founders of the studio. So we founded the studio, I think it's about 8 years ago. We've done one previous game, Bloodhunt, and now we're making Exoborne, and I'm the creative director for Exoborne. And previously, I've been creative director, I've been game director on a looter shooter, and I was a programmer for a long time before that.
Gotcha. Well, looter shooter is definitely, that's our background. So we play a lot of Destiny, Borderlands, and, I will say the first time I saw Exoborne, immediately Anthem vibes kind of spoke to me because I see the exosuits and the movement and that's something that really is apparent in the gameplay is that level of movement. But I remember seeing y'all's trailer last year, and it really spoke to us because, I mean, again, the exosuits are really what stands out so much here. And then we hit the playtest in February. And then there's been just huge leaps of improvements in the playtest that we got to play last week. The question I really wanted to ask on this is is there any type of team composition or rig interaction that you guys are trying to focus on? Or is it going to be a situation where anyone can roll in there with the same rigs as they want to? Is there going to be any type of almost like team bonuses being unlocked with certain rigs that you bring in?
Great question. I'd like to start with just talking about you talked about the movement, and it's a little bit part of our history with Bloodhunt as well. That was a game with vampires, a lot of movement, jumping on rooftops, climbing on walls, and we loved that kind of movement. And we want to continue with that, but we need to sort of be able to explain it with the characters we have. And that's a little bit how the mechanics of the Exorig came to be. And it's also a great platform to define your play style. And of course, the most important part is that you as a player get to play the game as you want to. You find your play style that you like. But then on top of that, as you mentioned, you have the synergy between the different group members. If someone is really good at scanning and observing and like being able to point out enemies, someone else might be really good at stealthing and using that information to their advantage. So yeah, at the same time as it's really fun to be able to play the game your way, when you start having multiple Exorigs and especially multiple builds that are focused on different gameplay, then your team really gets a benefit. But still possible to play with the exact same build if you want to.
Gotcha. I gotta focus it back on movement just real quick because I'm a gameplay junkie. I just love when games they just feel good when your character feels like an extension of yourself. And that's how these rigs feel. And so the movement there is it's so smooth. But let me ask you, is there a sweet point? Is there a balance that you guys are trying to hit on what's too much movement? And then when do we have to tactically slow things down a bit?
So that's an excellent question. I think the movement came to be because in the looter shooter, many of us worked on that one almost 10 years ago. It was very much cover-based. And when you have cover-based and PvP, you sort of want to be in a space when you can be more everywhere and have more agency over your character. And that's what we wanted to do with this game, to find that sweet spot of, okay, how much movement can we do? How fast can we be, but still be tactical? So that's our goal, to be as fast as we can be, but be tactical in that space.
I might be a little bit biased here. I will say, I feel like it's really perfect right now. Like the movement feels just really, really good. I feel like, because I find that most extraction shooters feel very constraining. They're always trying to almost like draw and bring the gameplay down. You know what I mean? And I know that's supposed to be quote unquote tactical, but it really takes that fun element out of it. So I'm sure you guys are going to continue to do some tweaks, but at least from the most recent playtest, I had a really good time.
That's good. I mean, we're watching it all the time, and we have very clear. When you make games this big, you have a lot of data telemetry, so you can actually see the difference in different combat scenarios between the best players or players with really good aim and players that don't really have as good aim, and see what the difference is and the win ratio in those encounters. So that's something we're actively monitoring. And we would probably not have done this if we didn't have the experience from Bloodhunt.
I want to tag in because you mentioned buildcrafting a little earlier, and one of the things that, like, besides just the movement of Exoborne that makes it unique is the weather elements. And so when we're hopping into these different maps and we're dealing with stuff like tornadoes and storms, even fire tornadoes also, how does buildcrafting, and especially like around movement as well, build into facing these different like elements of nature?
So I think as a player, you don't exactly know what's going to happen in the session when you jump in, but you know that you can probably be stronger in one of the sort of force of nature. If it's in storm or if it's in mist, either you want to go jack of all trades, so you're decent in all of them, or you want to have some kind of edge in one of them. When I make my builds, I try to have some kind of edge in one of them. So I know that, okay, when this happens, I know that I have a little bit more tactical advantage than other players. I can play to that. So, okay, there is some mist coming in. Okay, in this session, I have a thermal scope. I know what I can do in the mist. They can probably not see me. Maybe they can, but we're at least even playground. Most likely I can sneak up. But it's different. Maybe it's in storm and I can fly faster, etc. with my Kestrel. But we want you to be able to make a build where you can get that edge in specific weathers.
Gotcha. And so this is going to be my next question, but I guess you kind of answered it with the thermal scope, is that if you're building into facing these different forces of nature, it's not it's not going to be diverting from you have to choose, right? You're either choosing between building into nature or building into being better against players. It sounds like they're kind of one and the same, where it's like you're building into both at the same time.
I think it's interesting, important with the choices that you have, that they have some kind of consequence. So when you're selecting one thing, you can't be the best at everything at the same time. Somewhere you need to commit. So maybe we talked about different builds for your different squad mates. And well, you could go in and making sure that you cover as much as possible, or that you're really strong in one.
I want to circle back to I don't know how y'all pulled off the storms. And I mean, like that's a technological feat all in its own. It doesn't seem static. You know, there's games you play where it's like, this is where a tornado is supposed to spawn, or this is where this squall is going to roll in. At least from our play session, it seems truly randomized. It'll go from being somewhat relatively peaceful to just hell on earth, and everything is just happening all at once. How have y'all pulled that off? Is that something y'all brought from your previous game into this? These weather effects?
I would like to say it's thanks to all the talented people at the studio, because we started with this a couple of years ago, and we had this idea of making the world alive and create all this variation and gameplay opportunities with this system. And I remember having the first meetings about this where some of our tech directors were like, should we really do this? Really, Peder? Is this really a good idea? What does it actually bring? And they're like looking at all this amount of work. But we started step by step, making system by system. It's completely, I would say, systemic. And the goal is for us to, when the game is live, that we continue to add more things to the systemic environment. It's almost like this ecosystem that creates emergent gameplay, and that we continue and build on it. And I mean, we're already starting to designing and building things for the future that it's going to add onto the system.
Yeah, the weather feels alive. There was one point we were fighting another team, and these tornadoes and everything was just like ripping through. And at some point, you just have to, even though there may be a team over there that's one shot, who probably has a lot of great loot, you just can't even risk it. You're like, there's a huge storm here, and for good reason. We should respect nature. I do want to ask, because the first time I played, I felt like I could open my chute around a tornado, and I was relatively safe. I can kind of use it to kind of push me. Did y'all make a change that when you open your chute, now if you're too close, the tornado sucks you in, which naturally it should, but it was very, because I told Liv and I told Les, I was like, hey guys, we got a tornado here. We're going to use this to jump up to the cliff above us. And we all just got sucked in and got killed. And so it was pretty dangerous, which there's a way to get out of it. I don't know. Les figured out a way to get out of it. Les, I don't know how you pulled it off.
So yeah, in short, we did some changes, because I think in the previous test we had, it was more of a fun toy, and it didn't really, it wasn't really threatening, right? You saw the tornado, like, oh, I can use the tornado to travel far to get to the other side on the map. But now it's more of a threat, and that's where we want it to be. Like when you see the tornado, we want that tornado to be something that changes your plan, because your plan is probably to go to one of the landmarks, maybe to the Rebirth Tower to find stuff, but this sort of changes your plan, or you're hunting another team, but this changes that. And then we have the firenadoes that are even more dangerous to you, so you can't actually enter the space. You need to change and adapt to it. So that's what we like with the tornadoes and firenadoes as well, that they change your plans.
I like it. It's an added element that I never have really respected in any other game. You'll get fog in some other games, maybe some rain here and there. You've probably heard devs talk about dynamic weather systems. This is truly a dynamic weather system. And so much so that in the middle of a gunfight, I had to abandon both Les and Liv and just hide in a, like in this shack. And I'm like,
abandon over here.
and I'm in this shack, and I'm like, please, I hope this shack holds and doesn't get ripped up, But that's what these storms, the element that they bring, and I think that's such a nice little bit that you can add to it.
I want to quickly jump in because this actually goes into our next question that we have with the environmental damage and being chaotic with the maps being more difficult. We noticed that the more higher difficulty maps, we got much more dynamic weather. So for one of the smaller maps, we got a ton more tornadoes around us, to a point where I was stuck in 3 different tornadoes at one point. Somehow managed to live. I don't know how, but how do you guys scale the environmental damage and the PvE combatants with these more difficult maps when it comes to the weather and these enemies as well?
Yeah, so we want these different maps to basically increase the risk for the player, because it's increased risk and reward on each map. And risk, as I define it, is the risk of you losing, like dying and losing all you have in your loadout and inventory. And it also makes it a little bit harder to plan. So on Maynard, which is the big map you start on, the different weather presets, usually they're a little bit more mild. There's still tornadoes and rain and storms, but once you get to Agnesville, that really starts to intensify. And when you get to Sinkhole, then it gets really crazy. And you will also see that the weather changes a little bit more than it does on Agnesville and Maynard. So we try to play with the intensity and the setting of that. And then the NPCs, they're also a little bit more difficult. So on Maynard, the majority of all the NPCs are one of the bandit factions we have called Bodkin. They're not super hard. They're quite easy, especially if you're an experienced player. But once you get to Agnesville, most of the bandits are Nord, another bandit faction. And once you get Sinkhole, most of the enemies are Rebirth enemies, robots. And they're really, really difficult if you don't bring in good stuff.
Yeah, that actually kind of goes into our next question about PvE scaling. So we noticed that the weather was scaling as the map difficulty increased over time. But is there ever a point where you intend for a PvE enemy to be so difficult that a team needs to stop and handle that situation before engaging with a PvP team, or else they're just done for? Or, is the PvE intended to be an opt-in? If you want better loot, if you want story-driven loot, you go for the PvE enemies, but you can still choose to ignore them if you want to.
I think in this game, in Exoborne, the big threat you have is always PvP. I think it's hard to ever make PvE as challenging. And I also think personally that you can always cheese PvE content somehow after working with PvE. You probably know all about this. but so for us, PvP is always the big challenge. However, PvE has a really important role in Exoborne, which is that it takes time. And it's also some kind of verification that you have the gear you need to have to be here. And it provides some challenge, but usually it's dangerous, but the real danger comes from third party, from another group, because they can hear you. So especially on Sinkhole, which is the tier 3 map that we have in the playtest that you played, you need to be careful. And even if you're a full group, I would recommend that not everyone focuses on the encounter, but watch out for the other groups that come.
Gotcha. No, I know that's always a delicate balance between the two. And coming from Destiny, it's so funny that you mentioned, bosses can get cheese, because that's actually what we're always trying to do, is find ways to cheese the game,
Yeah.
And so people always are looking for the thing that's the what is the least amount of resistance, but for the most loot. And so, but what I really liked in this play session going around is I like, because of the movement and because of it just seems like I know I can kind of get a visual indicator or an audio indicator of where an enemy team is. And so the PvE enemies, it does something enough to at least give you some sign of where the enemy may be. And then because of the movement, you have enough movement there to get to that enemy and get those engagements. And so that's just something I really noticed. But is there any plans at all to mix things up and have like a PVE World Boss drop in, to where, I don't know, is there ever a moment where in the future, I know maybe too ambitious, but it's like, I see an enemy team, they see me, but this huge spider tank just dropped down and we got to deal with this thing, or we're both toast. Is there ever any future map that you guys might throw that in?
It's cool. It's something we've talked about, but it's not something we have right now. I guess that's what I can say about that one. But it's really cool, and all the activities or all the things you do that involve multiple groups, either against each other or together with each other, is super cool and stuff we're looking at, I can say.
So now we're going to segue to more of the extraction shooter genre itself and all the loot that comes with the game. How do you guys see players valuing certain items? Like, do you want players to value more of utility stuff compared to story driven items, maybe where there might be a text in there saying something that could give you a hint of what the story may be? What is your philosophy for these new players, and what should we be valuing more in terms of when we go in there? What should be the things that we go for specifically?
So I love scavenging when there's a choice for me as a player, and I that's the experience I want to create for everyone who's playing this. So I want you to see, when you find an item, I want you to think, okay, what should I use this item for? Is it part of crafting? Is it part of valuables that I want to sell for cash? Or maybe it's part of crafting, but I don't need it myself. I want to sell it on the marketplace. Not sure if you found marketplace, but there's a marketplace between players, and want that to be a dynamic marketplace. So you can sell it to someone else, which obviously might be super expensive because it's a unique item to craft a specific, really good high value item. When it comes to story items, I think that's really, really important as well. And we have a collectible system. Not sure if you saw the collectibles. So we have a bunch of collectibles in the world, and you can collect them, but some of them you can also listen to in the world to get more lore background, understand more about the world that we have built. It's quite rich, the world of Exoborne, and why the world has been transformed, and what did Rebirth do, what did they not do, how did this disaster happen, why didn't we stop it, and why did everyone die, and what are the towers doing now, which is part of the sort of narrative through both assignments and collectibles.
Leading into my next question specifically is, how would you balance these high stake items and tensions of losing these items specifically? So when I go in there and we found a sewing kit that was worth $700,000, when we see that stuff, we get this feeling inside. We're like, oh my God, we need to extract right now. So how do you balance what the risk and reward scenarios are, and what is your vision for the progression side of things as well?
Oh, balancing. I can start with that one. So on all the maps, you will find some items that are really, really valuable. They're not super frequent, actually, but they exist on all maps. And when you go to Sinkhole, I'm not sure if any of you picked up the legendary artifact. For example, the legendary artifact, which might be one of the items we have in the game with highest risk and reward for that matter, you will be tracked on the map, so everyone will be able to see where you are, which is super fun because you know that once you pick it up, you're probably hunted by 3-4 different groups. Not only are they trying to kill you, but they're trying to kill each other to get this legendary artifact. So that's super fun. But when you pick up these high value valuables as well, you know that you really don't want to die. You want to extract as fast as possible. And we want that choice. Should I continue? Should I go? Where should we go? We're trying to make sure that those items are in places where you would encounter other players as well. So there's a lot of designing and balancing involved in that. And now I forgot your second question, which was progression. Yeah, so I mentioned background in looter shooter, and I mean we love that kind of mechanics, and that is why we have 3 very clear different tiers, or we have that kind of thing with items that really matter to you, and you want to get the purples, you want to get the legendary items. They really matter, and I believe that from when you played now the Q5 items, that we call them, they're even more powerful than when you played. It's something we really like.
I want to jump in on the scavenging side because there was one point where, I was pretty much broke and Liv was like, you got to just start picking things up. Because like Les and I was just like running and gunning and we were like, no, we need to kill people. We don't. And then we started scavenging. And oh my God, like the sewing kit is just one example of many where if you just look, there's so many different ways, like even if you are just a scavenger, like, maybe you got to play the corners of the map and you just got to go through and just kill some ads here and there. We racked up so much money, and I'm assuming that's an intentional design so that you can go back in there, even if you have hardly nothing, and take the scavenger route.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's I would say three main different ways you can acquire items in Exoborne. The first one is, of course, the high risk, high reward way, which is killing other players. And when you do, you will probably die a lot, honestly, because killing other players, sure, you might have a 75% win rate, 80, 90, but even doing that, 1 out of 10 times you're going to die, and then you lose all this cool stuff. So that's one way, high risk, high reward. The other one is to make sure you get the valuables for all the cash, and you can buy cash. And I mean, you can use the cash on Marketplace to buy items, so you can spend that, but you need a lot of cash to buy the good items. Or we have the crafting, and crafting, you need a bunch of different crafting materials. If you miss 1 or 2, you can buy it from the basic vendor, but mostly it's all about going to places that you can find these things. And this makes it sort of possible for you to create this journey yourself based on the needs you have currently, because this journey changes a little bit as well. So when you're new, you're fresh to the game, you're out in Maynard, you'll discover that there's a lot of Q2 items, like green items, dropping in Maynard. So if you have died, you had nothing, what you can do is just jump in and play on Maynard, because you're going to find almost a full Q2 set on Maynard. That's fine. But as soon as you want to progress and get better things, you will need to go to Agnesville, you will have to go to more high-risk locations, and then you have the journey up, and then you die a little bit, you journey down, and then you go up. So I think it's fairly balanced, but we'll see in the coming playtest how balanced it is.
Right. I really like the separation there that you'll have with the maps. I think it does a really good job of allowing new players to start off at those lower tier maps, and then the super sweaty players will be, hopefully out of those maps, will be at the higher tier areas because they're looking for better loots and looking to go up against better players. Yeah. And as far as artifact goes, the legendary artifact that you mentioned, is that something only present on the high tier map? Is that ever going to be present in the lower tiers by any chance?
No, the legendary one is probably only going to be on the high risk, super high risk map. Then we have like blue and purple artifacts on Agnesville as well. So there's plenty of good artifacts to find, and some blue artifacts on Maynard. But the absolute best stuff, you have to take the most risk to get, or spend a lot of time to get the crafting materials or cash to buy items.
Gotcha.
And when you're talking about finding materials on maps to craft certain items, obviously we went in at first with the best of the best shields on, for example. Would you be able to find the materials to craft those on the lower tier maps, or do you have to go to Sinkhole if you want to find the materials that are needed to craft the best of the best?
The best of the best, you would have to go to Sinkhole to find. But the next best, you don't have to go to Sinkhole. And it's pretty good, but not as good.
Probably a good design choice to be on. Again, And like I say, like the sweaty players are going to be winning their gunfights. They're going to be accumulating all the resources. And so the way I just envision that is like they're obviously going to be going into those higher tier maps, which does allow for the other players to accumulate some resources before they make that big tackle.
And I can also say that once you have the best of best gear and you've played a bunch, you probably want to go to Maynard and kill all the new players. Well, the thing is, when you do, you're not actually going to meet the new players. I just want to make that clear. Yeah, so you're as a new player, you're not going to end up meeting the best of the best players trying to kill you.
Gotcha.
We're separating them for everyone's benefit. I think
it's just, in my opinion, it's a smart move, especially in a game of like an extraction shooter.
Yeah, you'll see some games use like a gear score in order to make sure that you don't exceed a certain map. For those who haven't played yet, is anything going to be safe? Like if I go in and like, is there any sort of box I can put my gear in?
You do have a safe box for a key, but as far as I think it's just keys you can put in there, correct? In the safe box, or can you put anything else?
You can put valuables in that as well. So you have the safe box for stuff you loot, but we also have a progression track for your Exorig. And that progression track is safe. So that is not part of your loadout, and you unlock different... It's almost like you're taking your Exorig and you change the plating of the Exorig, and you change the joints, the motors, the sensors to give you some benefits. And one of my favorite is like it scans when you use your grappling hook, for example, which is a huge game changer once you get it. Because then you have... a group with different things. Someone scans different things. It really changes the way you play.
On the topic of Exorigs, right now you have currently 4, correct?
I would say it's 3. We have a tutorial Exorig that you have in the beginning.
Yes.
And once you get the 3 proper ones, then you don't use it anymore.
Gotcha. Any plans, which I mean, that's still a lot, but any plans to add, like as far as like rolling out content, do y'all plan on ever adding another additional Exorig down the road? Because these are like game defining. It isn't just like, hey, this character looks different. No, they are actually different. They're the equivalent of classes in Destiny. And so I know it's a big undertaking to add something like that in the future. But just wanted to know if there are any plans.
It's quite a lot of work to make these Exorigs because they need to look different. They need to look like their sort of play style that want to create the base play fantasy. They need to have some core abilities. And as you probably guess, I've been told to not commit to anything in this. So yes, we're going to make more.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
I love to hear that. That's wonderful. No, I just, again, they're super defining, and so I just love the movement of all of them, and I just love how they separate themselves. But back to the question I wanted to talk about, though, is time to kill. And I noticed that when we were playing, because time to kill is different for all games. Some people, me personally, like I like the 0.8 range in like arena shooters, but then in extraction shooters, you want kind of a lengthier time to kill so you have time to react, especially considering you have so much loot. So like you start talking like 1.5. I guess you can't really arrive at a number there, but is there a sweet spot you guys are trying to go for in terms of TTK?
There is, but it's not a number. It's a player experience, I think I should say. So we want the game to be tactical because, when the time to kill becomes too much, it's no longer tactical. We're starting to get the issues that we had in I'm going back to Blood Hunt because it's a game where our time to kill was a little bit longer in the beginning. So what we found with the longer time to kill is that when you have 2 players and they're starting to jump in the air, it really becomes the player that is the best of making headshot that wins that fight when you have long time to kill, which is interesting. And I think it was a little bit surprise to us all because we initially, maybe this sounds naive, but initially when we worked on that game, we thought that long time to kill makes it a little bit easier for players that might not be as good at aiming because it's easier for them to get all their shots in. But actually what we found was that it really makes it easier for the good players to kill the weak players. So we want this game to be tactical, but we also want it to be fairly quick, because that makes it tactical, because then I can have an ambush for you. I can scout for where you are, and I can be prepared and make sure I get the kill. And my time invested in all of that work, I get something for it. But at the same time, as you mentioned, we want you to be able to react to it. So it's important that we have some kind of counters to what you're doing. And that's also part of, let's say, the tactical toolbox. And it's always a balance, because in a game like this, we have the gear, and depending on what kind of ammo you have and what kind of armor you have, it creates a span for us to work with. And we need to make sure that this span is never out of control. Like, we have a ceiling and we have a floor of the time to kill that we work within. And it's the same with weapon handling. It's also a balance. We want mods to do something and for them to affect weapon handling in a way, and that has an effect on time to kill as well for most players, not the best players, but most players. So that creates some kind of band of how big this spread is. So now I managed to answer the question without sort of answering it. But it's really about the player experience of making sure it's tactical. And as I mentioned before, we can measure if it's tactical or not with actual numbers. So we can see if that works or not. So it's less about the actual number of bullets and more about the player experience.
Gotcha. Well, on that too, it's like, do you want the person who does take the time to go for the flank have the ability to potentially pull off the team wipe? Is that something that you guys are making a possibility here? And of course, it all comes down to very what's the player's skill? You know what I mean? What's his kit? All that stuff.
I mean, 1 versus 3 is really hard. So I think if you do that, I mean, there's a couple of really, really good players that can do it. I can clearly not do it, but I might be able to finish 2 out of 3 maybe, if I'm lucky, if I'm prepared. But since we have different mechanics for revive and resurrection and all of that, if I kill 2 and have to flee, they should be able to get back and hunt me.
Well, that would be where a lot of that weather kind of comes to play in, where it's like you want to take advantage of that situation of like a tornado coming through. Mm-hmm. Like, now's my chance to actually take these guys out.
I mean, I've done it in the internal playtests, but that's different. Nobody expects it to happen, but it's fun when you do it.
I tried a number of times, and for me, I would get maybe one guy down if I was lucky. You know what I mean? And then the other 2 would just shred me. But again, skill issue. I know. We'll work on in the next playtest.
There was that time that you were hiding under the staircase, hoping they didn't see you, until there was a tornado coming in. And Les and I had gotten taken out by the tornado. And we were like, just wait for the tornado to pass. You can get us up. But then another team was in the area. So, Cross was just hiding under a staircase, hoping they didn't find him until the tornado was through, and they did.
Well, actually on the topic of that too is I was able to hide, and the team extracted, and then a second team I was able to luckily they weren't really paying attention, I was able to get them. But what I liked was that Les and Liv had both been killed. They were both completely downed, but I was able to still go back and resurrect them and revive them. So they weren't completely out. Now, granted, I think Les, when you were revived, I think they had looted you. So if I'm understanding correctly, and this is a gameplay design choice, is you're never truly out until you're out. And so there's always a way for your team to get revived and come back. Your stuff may be looted, but if you're lucky and if it was chaotic enough, maybe you died, maybe there's weather elements, maybe someone was trying to extract. When you revive them, there's always a chance they can still get their loot back.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the intention. I come from the background of let's try to keep the group together, because that's how I play with my friends. We all want to be able to play together, because if one is out, they need to sit and wait for the rest of the group.
No, that's super important. And especially in like matchmaking lobbies and stuff like that, if someone gets killed and if they think they're out, they'll immediately leave. You know what I mean? They'll immediately be like, I'm bouncing, I'm going to the next lobby. But in Exoborne, there's always a chance to come back. And so, and if you're willing to wait the other team out too, so you can just kind of roach your way back and get them up. So, but yeah, that was an intense moment. Luckily, no one saw me hiding underneath those stairs.
So already over the course of we've been play testing with you guys since I think it was earlier this year. And so we've seen a lot of changes from that play test into this play test that we're currently in. And so once game launch hits, do you guys see the community feedback from even just the actual playing the game once it's live dramatically shaping the game in the future?
I think we're going to continue to work the way we're working right now. And you were in the test early this year. We started working like this more than a year ago, almost 1.5 years ago, and play testing with real players, listening to the feedback, looking at data. As you can hear, I'm a big data guy. I love looking at what players are actually doing, but also listening to what players say about the game and having a lot of discussions. Love like workshops with players that play the game a lot, so we can discuss like, well, what are the things, what would we like to achieve, what are the things we'd like to change, what do we want to improve. And usually it's about like what is fun right now, how can we make that even more fun. Okay, let's do that. And for example, the Exorig modification system came from a discussion like that. Okay, the Exos are really cool, how can we make them even cooler? And that was a discussion with players that spawned that discussion. And then looking at things that are not working, and I've talked about this a long time, but in our first playtest that was more than a year ago, we had huge issues with scavenging and items in general, and it was no fun. And we had basically a workshop where we even have post-its on the board, like a very traditional workshop kind of thing, where we looked at, okay, these are the issues, how can we make it more fun, what do we do? And we've been working like this for a long time, listening, discussing with the community, with players, but also having our strong vision for what we want the game to be, and trying to see because we're making, at the end of the day, we're all gamers working on the game. If you ask me, like, do you play games, I would probably say no. I only play games like 20-30 hours a week. And so we still, everyone still plays a lot, and we make games to be played. We want the players to love the game we're making, so of course we're making the game and testing it a lot, and we're doing this for a long time now, and we're going to continue to do it. And that's probably why you see so many changes from the last time. It's part of the way we work at Sharkmob by now.
I want to circle back because you saying you're a big data guy, and with this last playtest, was there any Exorig team composition synergy that you guys didn't notice people were actually using? Like, a lot of people are actually using just the cloak and the scanner, but there's this really underrated combination that you guys in the studio know about that you're surprised players haven't found. Is there anything you can give us? Any like insight? Because I would like to go in there with the
we
best
just
stuff.
want to know what the meta is really badly.
Yeah, I understand.
I know what the best is. So we can
What
go in
is
there
the meta?
What is the meta? So yeah, there is something in the playtest that I think we're not super happy about. It's that players prefer the Viper right now, and I think most of you probably play the Viper because most people play the Viper, and for various reasons that we would like to change, but now we're doing the playtest and don't have time to change that. But I think what we've seen is that we'll see if that reflects in the playtest as well, but that the Kodiak is actually really strong in late game with the fortification. It's a little bit OP, but we'll see if that it changes to some kind of Kodiak meta or not, because all that movement and traversal is really powerful as well.
Buildcraft, you're tight in main again.
I know. This is
You got to get the barricade going.
The meta has been laid out for me, so I know I know what to do.
Know.
Just to kind of circle back to some of the PvE stuff, I just want to ask: have y'all considered a PVE only mode at all? We come from Destiny, and this was something that other extraction shooters doesn't seem to have as well. But I just wanted to know: have y'all thought about it?
Of course, many times, especially since we've been making, many of us in the studio has been working on loot shooter, or loot shooters, I should say. Yeah, there is a thing with loot shooters. The balancing you do with items and enemies are slightly different from what you can do in PvP games. And our game is a PvP game at the core, which means that I talked about this sort of ceiling and floor of I call it vertical power, or we call it vertical power, how powerful you can be to make sure that PvP, even if it's slightly unbalanced, it's still in the regions of fair, where someone who's under-geared can kill someone who's pretty well-geared. With loot shooters, you have this scaling that where someone has a weapon that does like 10,000 times more, because that is how you create this fun progression journey. So I think in our game, in a looter shooter, you can't. It's hard to make that kind of looter shooter journey like a looter shooter can. So for that reason, I think we will always be PvP at the core, and PvP will always be important. But we can make a lot of fun PvE encounters, but we can't make it the main threat, main attractor, or main core loop for this game.
Sure.
So it's a fancy way of saying no.
Yeah. No, it's understandable. Yeah, and so, but I just wanted to ask though.
This is the question that I had specifically when we were playing, because a lot of times am currently I work, so I don't have the time to play with friends. Sometimes I just like to play solo. Do you guys have any plans to have a solo extraction mode only? So like if I wanted to go in there by myself, I'll also match other solo players, or do you guys just plan on keeping it the 3-man experience?
It's something we're discussing. We've been discussing that for a long time. And I think what we're doing now, when the test starts, the first weekend, we're going to do solo servers. So if you want to try it out, you can join the solo servers. I think what you need to do is just to remove group fill, and you're going to go directly into the solo servers. I believe that's on all maps. It's probably announced on Discord and in social media and something like that.
Yeah. So what I'm understanding,
something we're trying out basically.
Yeah. So it'll be solo versus solos, correct? Or will it be me solo versus? Okay, just making sure. Yeah. And I can see a lot of balancing issues happening as well with certain Exorigs being way better when you're solo, like the cloak one, like the stealthy one. Yeah. Those will obviously exceed a lot more than the barricade one or the other exosuits. Yeah. So I could see that there being some conflicts there, but it is just nice to have that solo player experience and also having that 3-man. So I'm glad you guys are actually going out and testing to see how the game performs in a solo environment.
One last PvE question. Specifically, we only tried this on the Maynard map, but we needed to gather these composites to open a door. Les and I found this area where a door was locked behind what we assume was a PvE encounter. We didn't know where to find the composites or what they were, but we really wanted to know what was behind the door that we couldn't open. And I just wanted to know.
It was in what area was that?
It was the first map that we playtest, and there was an area where there's like a bunch of generators.
Well, like a big tower, I thought.
It's like a big tower, and you have to restore the power through the generators. You have to go to the plugs and like interact with the 2 plugs that were not connected. And then you hit the button on both the generators, and then you'd be able to, it would say unlock, but then we required a specific material that didn't explain where we got it. So we were kind of like, is it in the area? Are the enemies that are in this area dropping it? Or is it outside source from another map? Or is it just somewhere else on the map, thousands of meters away? Like we didn't know where to go. Do you guys plan on having a description to where to find these things at all? Or you guys just want to be...
Okay. Yeah, so the requirement for clearance has been removed from all those doors. I should say that.
Okay.
Gotcha. You can just enter, but it comes with a cost, right?
Okay.
So what happens now when you activate the big pylons that you need, because you need to connect the cables, now there will be a beam going up into the sky. So for each pylon you activate, there's a beam coming up. So when you go into the tower, everyone on the map will see you're going into the tower. And the tower is, of course, one of the high-risk, high-reward areas. So it's like a water hole for everyone.
I like that. That's
good.
So funny story, we implemented it, and I want to try it out and see, did it actually achieve its goal? I opened the door and immediately get shot in the back by the guy sitting next to me, and I'm like, what's going on? He's like, but I saw the beams and I came over. Someone is here. So it's like,
it takes a second to activate everything. So it definitely gives people enough time, which I don't know, in some ways you might even be able to activate it and then just bait someone else to come open the door. Yeah. And then you could be the one that's shooting them back. But then who knows? Maybe there's another team behind them. So it'll be a cluster, but that's a good chaotic time for sure. Yeah. All right, guys. So, Luke, did you have anything else you want to ask?
Yeah, well, I kind of wanted to wrap things off with just a couple questions. One, first off, what's like the long-term vision as far as updates to the game, adding things? I don't want you to commit to anything of like launch times, but like, do you guys plan to consistently, like what pace are you guys looking at to bring updates to the game post-launch?
Yes, we have long-term commitment to the game. We'll continue. We've already started to work on what's coming sort of next for the game. So part of the team is working on that. A lot of cool stuff. I'm not sure if we're talking like, there's no like PR people here. So I should just looking at...
You're looking around. He's like,
They're just laughing at me at this point.
There's no cyber train on you right now.
There's nothing.
Nah. So yeah, now they are looking at me.
Now they're like,
I'm dying. No, I think it's quite similar cadence to other games with chapter and seasons. That we're going to update with content, all sorts of content, gameplay, vanity, things that makes the gameplay different. We talked a little bit about Xorig, mods, weapons, all sorts of stuff.
All right, that sounds pretty sick. And then following up on that, immediate future of the game, when can players first hop in and actually start like playing the game for themselves? Is there going to be a playtest coming up here soon, or that's public or launch window that we can look forward to?
We have a public playtest that starts on Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
All right.
wow, okay.
That's very soon. Okay.
Tuesday it is.
I'm going to jump in, and my son is going to be there with me. He's actually going to carry me.
Nice. Nice.
Nice. That's
Love it.
awesome.
Well, that's great news. We'll have to jump back in. We were itching to get back in there. So that's wonderful to hear. So that is, and how long would that playtest go for?
It will go on for 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
That's
Nice.
amazing.
I mean, it's a long
3
playtest.
weeks?
It's going to be fun.
Love that.
Okay. All right. We'll be able to get some hopefully good items.
And is the idea there for it being 3 weeks long to get players into some more of the late game, and like, so there's some feedback there on like the end game sort of play stuff in the game?
Absolutely. We have a lot of feedback on, moment to moment. Also, like what happens when you've played a few days. And I mentioned I like data. I like talking to players. So we want to see how we can improve and really look at the game when you've played for a couple of weeks. Where is the game then, and how can we improve that? So that is why the game, the playtest is 3 weeks, really.
And is this something that's going to be open to all players, or something you have to sign up for, like a closed playtest, or like you get selected
You need to sign up. You can go to the website and sign up for the playtest. I'm mistaken. You should not go to the website. Absolutely not the website, apparently. You should go to Steam.
No website.
No website. Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
All right. We'll definitely have that noted there for sure. So, but thank you guys so much for meeting with us and for just kind of walking us through some of y'all's design choices here with Exoborne. We're a big fan. We love what you had to show last year, and every playtest has brought something new, and the adjustments you guys have made has been leaps and bounds over the previous. So we're very much looking forward to this upcoming playtest and the future of this game. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I would love to know what you think about the game when you have played it for a while in this playtest.
Yes. No, I think that's really important. And for me, especially because I'm kind of a slow burn kind of guy. So, getting into organically getting into in-game and getting those high value items, it's going to hurt a lot more when I die and I lose them. So
it does. It's like, you've been grinding for days.
Yeah. But that's part of the thrill. I get it. So I'm looking forward to it. Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Thank you.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.